Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this presentation on how smart technologies are shaping Pennsylvania way stations and beyond. My name is Brandon Marie. I am the Director of Member Communications for the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association. And we have with us today Mark Nichols, who is the Director of Government Industry Partnerships at Drivewyze. Prior to joining Drivewyze, Major Mark Nichols served as a section director for the North Carolina State Highway Patrol, which included motor carrier enforcement and special operations. He is now leveraging his extensive knowledge to advocate and build relationships with state agencies. We also have Charlie Moan. Charlie is the Director of Product Innovation at Drivewyze, and he has 12 years of experience in trucking software industry and is currently responsible for the new lineup of safety services available from Drivewyze. Gentlemen, the floor is yours. Thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Brandon. It's always a pleasure to be here with PMTA and our friends and our listeners today. Mark Nichols, as he just mentioned, and I wanted to send a special thanks to PMTA over the years. I met the CEO, the past CEO, Jim Rump, many years ago, probably 2011, and he opened Drivewyze up with open arms and was very, very nice to us. And I just wanted to mention that, and the late Kevin Stewart, who was a personal close friend of mine for many years as well, and now your interim, Bob Utzer. So thanks to the relationship there at PMTA, Brandon, it's been a great ride for us, and we look for many, many years to come. All right.
Great. Hey, Brandon, if you can just let me share my screen, I think we can get going here with the presentation. Perfect. Thank you. All right, Mark, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, just hit the slides, bro.
All right.
Okay, every organization, every agency, and us, back when I was with the Highway Patrol, we always had a mission. And, you know, Drivewyze took this mission at heart. We wanted to improve roadway safety and efficiency through our mission. And we wanted to revolutionize the transportation safety and efficiency through our software technology. And I think we've done that. But the most important, our vision was a safe and efficient commercial vehicle transportation system with 0 crashes and 0 fatalities. So we got a story kind of to tell. So it's good that we have this opportunity to talk about a little bit about our past and who we are. So in 2003, Intelligent Imaging Systems started to deploy enforcement technology across the North America. And we were able to do so with award-winning products, off-the-shelf technology that we created and developed right here at Intelligent Imaging Systems. And that was thermal imaging. And we were able to take thermal imaging cameras and actually take a photo of a truck as it's traveling down a ramp at a way station or a mobile inspection site and actually capture that wheel's braking system to see if there's heat coming from the wheels, if there's heat coming off the tires, if the bearings are hot, all through the thermal imaging. So we're able to tell if that truck has working brakes or not, all through that photo picture within seconds. It's amazing. So we were able to take that, use that thermal camera to identify flat tires, bearings, brakes, and help save lives with the drivers as they approach way stations. We could actually tell if that vehicle was safe and get it off the road. We have some really neat stories in the past where we actually have saved lives with this technology, where actually a wheel fell off at a way station that we had determined that the truck was unsafe, and as it pulled to a stop, the whole front steering wheel actually fell off. So we know it saves lives, and that began us to look at other technology. From the thermal cameras, we went to something else. We said, well, we can develop that. Let's do something else. So we developed a thermal patch for a US DOT number. Same concept, we're looking for a number on that tractor at a highway speed and can actually take a thermal photo of it to identify that vehicle. And accuracy is unbelievable. And then we added something else called a license plate reader to it. So we were able to add all these components together, become a subject matter expert in the field of law enforcement technology. This was all from 2003 on. As we began our journey, we started looking at other ways to serve industry. How do we make it better? How do we rebuild it and revolutionize it from the standard and the norm? And that really got us to thinking. Everything we do is a strategy. We look forward to the most positive way that we can to influence, save lives, and expedite transportation commodities across our continent. So we looked at bypass, and we said in 2011, what can we do to speed the process up? What can we do to switch from the standard poles and readers, which are on the side of the road, and transponders and trucks, to a more robust technology use? And we looked at the opportunities with smart devices. We knew that cell phones were leading the way in the technology across the world. We knew that cloud, Wi-Fi, GPS was also available. And we said, let's make this work. So the smart folks at Drivewyze, and I have to applaud them every day. Charlie's on the presentation with us. These folks sit back and look at the ideas that we bring forward and actually make things happen. But we were able to go forward with it, and we were able to develop an app that resides on a smart device. So in 2003, we looked at bypass, and we said, what's the penetration rate for bypass in the US right now alone? At that time, it was only 12%, and there's some factors in there that cause that. A lot of them being way stations were developed in the 50s during the Eisenhower program on the interstates. There was not much use at that time other than in some states where it made sense to put readers and poles. So they had to look at return on investment, but we looked at a way to expedite bypass altogether. And that was through smart devices and GPS. So what we did was we came up with the idea of an app. What if we develop an app that will go on your smart device, tablets, iPads, phones at that time as a proof of concept to lead us into a better solution into the ELD, electronic longitude devices. So we took that journey and we started looking at it. We started deploying our geofences, longitude and latitude, using Google Earth to establish a point of contact for these GPS devices to operate. It would set the antenna off. It would give the driver a notification whether to follow road signs or to bypass that particular way station or inspection sites. But we also realized that because some of the way stations were outdated, we needed a more robust type of technology. So that app actually reached these points where law enforcement were moving away from some of the way stations into rest areas to work. They were moving into a more safe environment to work because of the outdated stations. So we developed it in mind that we could stand geofences up, create a bypass, not only at the way station, but at anywhere there is a mobile inspection site available. That was that really changed the way things have been done in the past. The fact that we could stand technology up in a matter of minutes, that we could send out geofences to a field where trucks could actually bypass a particular site, to us was ingenious. It's a way to actually reach that driver and to make a difference and save lives. In the fall of 2013, we actually launched 11 states, 100 sites. That was a big milestone for us as a company, a small company starting out. But we did that thanks to all the hard work that the folks at Drivewyze and Intelligent Imaging Systems that we have done to try to get to this point. Now, being a law enforcement officer for 30 years, we always looked at ways, how do we get a message to a truck driver? How can I message a driver to slow down, let them know of hazardous locations ahead? And for many years at Fatalities, I always thought if I could just get a message to that driver, a safe message, inside that cab, we could save lives, we could make a difference on our highway system. And we tried things. As a trooper, we tried AM radio, FM radio broadcast, variable message boards. We worked very close with our DOT partners to do that. But we knew if we could get a message to a driver, we could change the outcome of the situation. 2018 came along. We pushed ideas from our state agency partners, from our motor carriers, from inside our team at Drivewyze, and we came up with a static message notification system. And I mean static, that means it doesn't change, it's 24/7, it's sitting there. So if you look at the little signage there in 2018, we started with a simple rollover notification to drivers. As they're driving down a highway system or interstate system, we wanted to alert them of a rollover ahead. So what did we do? We geofenced about half a mile to a mile out, advising that driver that there is a rollover situation ahead. Not only did he have a visual screen, but he also gets a bell tone notification for the drivers to know that there is something ahead, to use caution. And if we can alert them ahead of time, we can help with that outcome. We actually did this. We actually did a study on it, and we went in a stealth mode situation where we didn't send a notification to a driver. For about 2 months, we monitored locations across the country, and then we actually gave them that notification. And we saw anywhere from a 17 to 20% difference in speeds reductions at those sites. Now, being a law enforcement officer, and any of you in the trucking industry, that's tremendous. Those are great outcomes for anyone. So we knew we were on to something. So we looked at other hazards in the roads, such as low-hanging bridge, low bridge notifications ahead. We see that all the time. Truck companies are embarrassed, the drivers are embarrassed whenever they have a bridge strike. That's tremendous work and damage to a bridge for DOT to inspect to make sure it's safe. We also looked at other things like check your brakes, use low gear ahead. And there were reasons behind all this. And I'll talk a little bit further on some of these messages as we go. Then in 2019, we started working with Pennsylvania State Police to launch a Drivewyze program in the state. Now, Pennsylvania is kind of unique. They don't have fixed way stations anymore. They kind of aged out, so they're actually utilizing rest areas for some of the inspection and way sites. So we had worked diligently with PSP to get a pilot program going with them in 2019, and all of a sudden we have a pandemic hit. And as you know, that made it very, very difficult for us to continue a pilot at this time. So right now we're in the process of getting that program reestablished, and hopefully we will as soon as we get a grip on this pandemic. So that's what happened in 2019. As we progressed further, we kept using our connected program, connected truck program, to reach more and more trucks across the United States. And today we're the largest connected truck program in North America. Thank you, Charlie. As you can see here, you see the little triangle there. It's under construction for Pennsylvania, and we hope to get it on very, very soon. But we're having to go through a little bit of time period here. If you look across the US and Canada provinces, we have 2 in Canada, and we have all the other states that you see in the dark blue. With the exception of Georgia, that state decided not to use any kind of bypass technology there. And then we're working on the other 2 states that you see to try to make sure that our technology is deployed in those states as well. Talked about ELDs, our electronic logging devices in trucks. What would we do without partnership and relationships, like we were talking about PMTA? So as you can see here, all the strategic partnerships that we have with our electronic logging device partners. We're very, very proud to have this. We worked hard to become a good partner with these folks. They have fantastic technology and it's changing every day, and we're keeping up and we're being a good partner with them so we can deliver the best product to our drivers. And again, it's #1 goal for us is keep drivers safe. And then #2 is to expedite those trucks through way stations and through any kind of inspection locations to keep drivers in the freight moving. We talked about some of the things in Pennsylvania. Although our bypass is not turned on right now, let's talk about the positives. So if you look here, you'll see the high rollover as I talked about in the blue. Those are locations that the US DOT and that the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, along with our partners at Pennsylvania State Police, have told us that there's a problem area for rollover. These are known areas, static areas as we referred to, that where trucks are actually traveling, that they see a hard turn, and sometimes speed is not reduced, and we have collisions in these areas. So again, we're actually notifying drivers ahead of time to try to prevent them from overturning that truck on that road and either causing fatalities, injuries, or delaying the traffic from flowing in those certain locations. If you look at the low bridge ahead, again, we talked about that. That is a dangerous situation as well. And it is all across the U.S. We see these problems in other states when you'll see more yellow dots. But in Pennsylvania, what we're trying to do is give that driver the opportunity, if he knows there's a low bridge ahead, let them pull off the road and let them make sure that they can actually safely navigate through that underneath that bridge without causing a stripe or damage. And then you see low gear ahead. These are steep grades where drivers sometimes use a lot of their brakes. And I say a lot of their brakes means they stand on their brakes too much. Professional drivers are really good about using their gears. So what they do is, instead of using the brake systems, which becomes overheated and they lose control of their vehicle, is to gear that vehicle down. So what we do there is we notify them ahead of time. Use your low gear, use caution when you're approaching so they won't stand on those brakes. You know, we had a situation, unfortunately, in the state of Colorado where a young driver that was not experienced with the mountain areas of that state entered and used a lot of the brake system up ahead of time, and when he needed them the most, they failed. That resulted in fatalities and collisions in that state. So we're not only doing this in Pennsylvania, we're notifying all the states across the country of any kind of incident that we can slow and use the low gears in commercial motor vehicles to a 35-mile-an-hour creep. We feel like they can help them navigate if they do have a runaway truck, but that gear is going to slow that truck down and let them maneuver into a safe place. And then lastly, I want to talk a few minutes about the rest areas. That's become of great importance to many of the drivers over the pandemic. As many of you know, some of them were closed. And what we're able to do is notify if there's parking available in a lot of these rest areas. We pick up the data from the DOT through our sensors, and we're in probably 6 or 7 states now where we're actually notifying drivers if there is a parking facility ahead in the rest area that has an open parking area. And this is important. Again, truck parking is a serious problem. I think ATA rated it as #1 as their problem across the country in North America. There's not enough space. So to give that driver some security that they can actually pull in and actually have a place to park that truck is very, very important. And we're able to do this through a service. So we'll talk more about it. Charlie will be able to tell more about it shortly. So how do geofences work? It's very important. But Charlie, did you want me to handle this one, or did you want to take it?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to jump in. Mark, thanks for the intro. So, yeah, you know, geofencing is a key part of really everything that we do at Drivewyze when it comes to location-based messaging, and we use this in both our safety notifications as well as our way station bypass alerts. And I think everyone's probably familiar with the term geofencing. And you know what we do is Drivewyze is, I'd say, a little more sophisticated than your typical geofence, where it's just understanding whether drivers in or out of a basic zone. For us at Drivewyze, it's we look at a given zone. In this case, the example on the left is a rollover zone. We actually set up multiple geofences in an area. In our back office, that geofence, the definition of that geofence gets synced down to the device, so ELD device or a mobile phone, when drivers are near that area, and basically as the driver's GPS approaches this zone, we use that to trigger events in the driver's display. So in the case of a rollover, that entering this alert geofence will trigger an alert for that the driver sees, indicating the rollover. So we can precisely define when that alert needs to show up for the driver based on that particular location's features. And I'll show a demo of this, so how this can be really important in a second. And then the second thing is we also geofence where risk areas are for a given zone in the case of a safety alert. So we can monitor and measure how drivers are behaving in areas where we know the risk is. So for a rollover zone, that geofence is going to be really at the apex of a curve where the danger of rollover is the highest. And then in the case of way station bypass, we use those same technology, geofences, to alert drivers 2 miles ahead of a way station or a bypass location, indicating that they're approaching, basically a warning saying a way station's coming up, and then they get an indication as they approach whether they actually get a bypass or not. So it's pretty cool how we can leverage that geolocation to call back into our services and call into really the logic for that state to determine whether or not that driver gets a bypass. That all happens in milliseconds as the driver's going down the road. And so our way station bypass service is, as Mark's really kind of described the history of that. At the end of the day, way station bypass is for our fleets, for our customers, is a no-brainer because it helps them save money. It helps drivers stay on the road, helps them avoid lengthy inspections. We see pretty significant justification of implementing our service just purely on time savings alone. And of course, it also impacts your safety scores. So, how and when you get inspected really drives your CSA scores. So whether you have a good or bad CSA score, having an intentional program around bypass is really an important thing to help drive that the success of your CSA score. Also drivers love it. Really, all the things we're talking about here. The real reason we're in this business is because drivers don't want to be. They want to be efficient. They want to be on the road. They want to be doing their job. And whether they're getting stuck in traffic or getting stopped at it for an inspection, they don't love that. So drivers love the bypass pre-clear tool as well as the safety alerts, and we'll talk a little bit more about the safety stuff in a second. In fact, I think we'll kind of jump right into going a little deeper on our safety solutions. And as Mark described, we've been in working with safety alerts for well over 2 years now. And in fact, we started our first real first stab at this concept of in-cab safety alerts around rollovers, rollover locations. And we really got great feedback from our customers that were testing this out, that this was a positive impact on how drivers are behaving in these risk areas. So we expanded this about a year and a half ago. We went from about 100 locations that we were testing in rollover zones during our 2-year pilot study. We expanded that up to about 500 rollover locations across the United States, and went further with, as Mark mentioned, steep grade alerts in brake check locations in mountainous areas, as well as low bridges. And all of these zones, it's really important here for us is that these are curated. This is, we're not just buying a database and slapping it in and letting drivers get alerts as they're driving around down the road, really at any location. We are curating these zones based off of the risk profile for that road. So rollover locations in particular, we're focusing on the curves that have proven accidents, or a history of accidents, or have a really high, based on the data that we collect, have a high ratio of speed change from when the driver's alerted to when they're entering that zone, where we think we can prevent an accident. So not every curve in America is going to drive a geofence, driven alert here for a rollover. Low bridges, we're focused on low bridges that are in areas where truckers drive. And the cool part is we're showing the driver the bridge height. And in particular, in some cases, we're also helping the driver, determine which direction to go to avoid that bridge, to find an alternate route. And by the way, this Drivewyze we think safety is really important. So it's so important for us that we give this whole set of features around safety alerts for curated zones free for anybody who's using our bypass service. And we've had really amazing adoption. in the about year and a half, 2 years since we've launched this, the majority of the fleets that are on our service have opted to turn this service on, and the feedback we get from drivers is really phenomenal. In Pennsylvania, we've just over the past 12 months, for example, we have sent about 2 million rollover alerts to drivers, 32,000 low bridge alerts, and 53,000 steep grade alerts. Now these seem like, pretty big numbers. And I think one of the questions that always comes up is, well, gosh, how many alerts is a driver getting in a day? And again, because we're curating the zones and we're not spamming the driver, we're really trying to be careful not to spam the driver with all these messages. They're really only averaging 1 to 2 messages per day. So it kind of depends on their route and where they're going. They might see more if they're rolling down the turnpike all the way across Pennsylvania. But on average, we see drivers only getting 1 or 2 alerts a day. So it means that they're actually going to pay attention to those alerts. We've talked about the visual alerts, but there also is a chime, an audible component in here. So drivers don't have to be staring at their device as they're driving. We don't want distracted drivers on the road for sure. We've seen really, amazing data kind of underneath all of these zones. We collect speeding data as drivers are alerted, as well as when they're in those risk areas, whether it's a rollover curve or a steep grade. So we can track if they're slowing down. We can also track how they're speeding. The drivers are speeding relative to the posted speeds. And over the past 6 months in Pennsylvania, we're seeing in particular, real great trends on speed reduction. And you can see that, pretty consistently drivers who are getting these alerts are slowing down. When we look at drivers who get alerts versus the drivers who don't get alerts for kind of the same locations, on average, it's about a 17% reduction in speeding in the risk area when it comes to rollovers. Just to give you a high level kind of map of where these locations are and how speeding is impacted based on the location. It's really across the entire state. A lot of locations again on the turnpike, but some parts of the turnpike, these are on exits. Other parts, there are actually some curves on the turnpike that are on the main line that are quick turns and quick curves, and we want to warn drivers to slow down there. So you see different levels of slowdown kind of based on the road type. So last year, we've really just based on the resounding success of safety notifications, we decided to launch a new product. We call it Drivewyze Safety Plus. And this is really taking the safety notifications to the next level. And the core capability within Safety Plus is giving fleets the ability to take advantage of geofences and location-based messaging into what we call custom zones. And fleets are able to easily create their own custom zones, their own speed zones, whatever type of safety zone, and alert drivers, as well as analyze the behavior behind those locations. So I want to dive into that in a demo here in a second, so we're not just sharing screens all day. But I'll give you a real good feel for how easy it is to set those up and get messages out to drivers and prevent accidents from happening. Behind that, we also capture a lot of data around how drivers are behaving in these risk areas, whether it's the zones that you set up or the zones that we've set up. You can really dive in to understand driving behavior and use this as another tool in your safety toolkit to help identify risky driving behavior or behavior that maybe you want to reward. And then finally, Safety Plus includes a couple advanced types of safety alerts that are a premium version because they're based off of dynamic data. And the first one is what we call speed warnings, and we're leveraging accident data as well as violation data across the country to identify roads and road corridors where drivers are speeding and at risk of getting tickets. And so this is a tool that ultimately helps drivers slow down. It helps Fleets avoid unnecessary violations, which means better CSA scores. And we're focused in on really the areas where across the US where we see that biggest impact on safety scores. And so that's evolving, but it really works the same way as how I've described rollovers, in that we show alerts to drivers indicating that they need to slow down to a certain speed, and then we measure on the back end whether they responded to that or not. So again, it's a great way to kind of understand if drivers are following safety standards for your fleet. And then finally, parking alerts. Mark mentioned this. We launched parking alerts earlier last year, and we basically started in a couple states, expanded to 9 states, and we will soon be expanding this into Pennsylvania. And essentially, this integrates with the smart parking systems that many states have brought online just over the past couple of years. The truck parking information systems, TPIMs. And so we're basically connecting into those systems to tap into real-time information on how many parking spots are available. And drivers get alerts down the road. It kind of depends on the location, but minimally about 5 miles ahead of a rest area or other location where a parking lot's located, and we let them know how many spots are available. So again, this is kind of a real-time lookup. So and it's helps drivers. We think this is a safety feature, certainly is a convenience feature for drivers as well. But I've been on the road way too many times seeing trucks parked on the side of the road in a really not safe way. And we, if we can help drivers find safe parking and not waste time going through parking lots that are already full, we think we're going to help, help prevent sitting ducks. And so this is coming soon in Pennsylvania. We're working with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission on a parking notification project. And Drivewyze is not only providing the alerts, we're also working with them on the actual infrastructure to basically identify what parking spaces are open or not available. So really great to see this. Pennsylvania is really leading the charge here on the East Coast. Midwest has a number of states, and then we're expecting a lot more states to bring on parking availability, information over the next several years as parking just really continues to be a major problem for the industry. All right, with that, I'm going to dive into a demonstration of our safety solutions. And I think I'm just going to start with going through an example of really how you could leverage our custom safety zones. And this is one of those tools where I can demonstrate it one way and give a couple examples, but every customer, every fleet we talk to, when we share what this can do, they come up with they dream up their own ideas about how they could leverage location-based messaging to improve safety and communication with their drivers. So I encourage you, as you think, as I walk through this, to think about, ways that this could help safety, in your own use case. So what I'm sharing here today is what we call Drivewyze Hub. This is our online portal, and allows fleet managers to come in and, basically manage their Drivewyze account. So we'll focus in on the safety features today. But of course, it's a way to help manage your preferences and your fleet settings and all of that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a safety zone here. And you'll notice this is a real simple wizard. Really, anybody could do it without any training in terms of going in and setting up a geofence or a safety zone. When we set up a safety zone, we look at it as there's really 2 types of safety zones that you could set up. The first would be a zone where you want to display a safety alert to a driver. The other would be where you just want to analyze driving behavior in a location. You might want to do both. So you might want to show an alert and then see if drivers, slow down after they got the alert. So for this example, I'm just going to I'll actually choose both. But you have that ability to basically use this as a, kind of a way to monitor how fast drivers are going in an area where you think you might have a problem without actually impacting the driver's day. So a lot of use cases really on both sides. You get to choose what type of risk zone it is. This is really just for categorization. I'm gonna say this is a collision zone, and I used to live in Philly, so I'm gonna pick on Manayunk and the Schuylkill Expressway for a second, and basically just pretend like for my fleet, let's say I had a fleet in Philadelphia, and I know my drivers are frequently going down the Schuylkill Expressway on 76 here. Basically, I just put in Conshohocken, and you can really drag the map, identify any location on the map any way you wish, and then basically just drag this alert to where you want an alert geofence to show up. So if I wanted this eastbound alert to show up on 76 in this area, I can put it here. I can basically move this rectangle shape to where I want an alert to show up, and as the driver enters into that rectangle, they will get an alert. Because I chose to capture driving data, I can also set up a driver safety driving behavior geofence. So this red fence, basically I can put anywhere down the road. And in this case, maybe, it's way down the road. I think just for demo purposes, I'll just keep it simple. But if you wanted to see how, basically the use case is, well, okay, I told the driver to slow down. Did he or she slow down? So you might want to put it, half a mile down the road to determine if they actually responded to that alert, or put it in an area where you know that there's high risk. And then you get to define your message. And this isn't like other messaging systems that drivers might already have, where it's just going to show up in an inbox or in a messaging queue. Really, every message we provide is designed as to look like a road sign. It's going to take over the screen in the cab over their ELD app or navigation, whatever they have running at the time. This alert's going to pop up for about 10 seconds. A driver can always tap on it to dismiss it if they need to go back to their, say, navigation. But it's a very safe, effective way to get an alert into a driver's hands. And you can customize the message here. So I'll just say something simple like slow down, and maybe I want them to slow down to a certain speed. And really, you can kind of put whatever you want here. We do try to encourage the text to be short, less than 25 characters, so it's readable by drivers. We've done a lot of studies on readability, and we don't encourage really big, long messages. So, and you can preview how this would look on a device. The icon is based off of the category you picked, so you might get a little different icon if you picked say a parking spot versus a collision zone or low bridge. And then you get to basically, in this case, because I'm measuring driving performance, I can put in the speed limit, the actual posted speed limit for trucks, and I can use that as a way to measure whether drivers are following the speed limit or not. And we can categorize these. You can name it for reporting purposes or put in internal notes, and then basically once I hit publish here, this will get pushed out to trucks, and our system works in a way that it basically any drivers that are approaching that site periodically look for new geofences, and so within an hour, any truck that's approaching the site would have this alert set up. So this could be a great way to get messages out to risk areas that you have seen accidents, in your fleet or know about, in your area. Publish that. Another example can also just be, I'll just choose other here, but another example that we've heard a lot is companies wanting to alert drivers for specific reasons in their own terminals or yards. So it's not augmenting a road sign that's already out there. It's adding a whole road sign that you could never really put up. You can't put a road sign up in the middle of a big yard, or maybe you don't have a place to put a sign as at the gate. So in this case, in the case of can't type and talk at the same time. In the case of a terminal, you can basically switch over to satellite view here. So if this were, say this were my terminal right here in Pittsburgh area, I could drag my alert icon, on the entry point or exit point to warn a driver, about something. So maybe, so if Graham Street is the exit point, maybe I want to remind drivers on exiting to make sure that they did their DVIRs, their vehicle inspections. We've heard of tons of examples of, maybe there's terminals that have areas where you're not supposed to park or not park. Really, it's up to your imagination on how you can leverage these alerts. So I can just put in reminder, complete your DVIR, and that's that. And essentially these get published, and unless you go in and change it, they'll continue to send to drivers as they enter or exit those zones. The final example, the kind of use case I mentioned is around analyzing driving behavior. So you do have the ability to basically set up one of these zones and just monitor data to understand how fast drivers are going, see if drivers are going in that particular location, which drivers are going there, and it's a great way to then take that information and customize an alert that would make sense based on that location. We also have some fleets that are using this for like more real-time alerts, so weather or kind of emergency broadcast alerts. I live in South Carolina, so it seems like every year there's a hurricane evacuation, and in that case there's a lane reversal. So for a day or two during that process, trucks have to reroute to get around that lane reversal. So it may only be published for a day or two, but you could set this up and basically deactivate it once that lane reversal is over. Everything I showed here around custom safety alerts, you are able then to see the results of the data for those alerts as well as our own alerts, the curated alerts within our safety insights in Hub. And we do make this available through API as well. And we're working with some of our partners to integrate this into their own driver coaching platforms. But essentially, you have the ability to see at a fleet level how many drivers were alerted by zone, basically how many alerts were shown, and kind of the key metric we hone in on is what we call speeding incident percent. And this is just a measure of every time that a driver goes through one of those risk zones. So if it's a rollover curve or a steep grade or a place where you want to measure driving behavior, every time they go through that, are they going the speed limit, above the speed limit or not? And if they're going at least 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, we consider that to be a speeding incident. So we measure this across, basically every event and roll it up at a fleet level so you can understand, okay, how safe or unsafe, is my fleet based off of these kind of known curated risk zones. And you can see in the case for this this test fleet, they have about a 25% speeding incident rate for rollovers, 33% for speed violations, and 29% for steep grades. So it might be an indication that they have some work to do in these speed zones to help identify drivers that really need to slow down, on the road. We break this into high risk performers and low risk performers down to the vehicle or driver level, so you can see really get down to actionable information around drivers that you might need to talk to. And this is all drillable, so you can drill through to the events for that particular driver or vehicle, and all the way down to the event level. So I could pick on this guy and see that in this case this is in San Antonio. It looks like posted speed limit was 25 miles an hour. He was going 49 when we alerted him. He slowed down to 36, but that's still 11 miles an hour over the speed limit. So this is a great coaching opportunity to, take this event and, maybe talk with that driver about how to drive in rollover curves. So we aggregate this data at the fleet level. It's available at the vehicle or driver level. And we also have a risk zone summary report that lets you identify, basically by location, which sites, might be the biggest pain points for your fleet. So this is great for just identifying, maybe routing decisions or, training particular groups of drivers in certain areas, based on the biggest risks. So just in Pennsylvania for this test fleet, this is identifying the sites that have the highest speeding incident percent. And, I could pick on this, Stallstown Turnpike site where the posted speed's 55 miles an hour, but on average, drivers are going, 6.7 miles an hour over that speed limit. You can see a couple of these other ones, that the numbers are even higher. So great way to maybe pick on a particular site, identify this as a training opportunity for your fleet. So all of this information, certainly is valuable on its own. We also think this is really helpful to augment other coaching tools that you might already have in place for your fleet. The big difference in our mind is that these are the zones that we set up are known risk zones where accidents have happened. So it makes that conversation with the driver even easier because it's not about some random road in the middle of North Dakota. This is about an area where accidents happen, and makes that conversation with the driver even easier. So with that, I'm gonna flip it back over to my presentation just to kind of sum it up how this is impacting fleets across the board. We see we see a 17% reduction in speeding in rollover curves. We see a 27% reduction in speeding in areas where we set up the speeding alerts. In the custom zones that our fleets are setting up as part of our Safety Plus solution, we're seeing really similar trends. And the messaging that they define really does impact the behavior based on the feedback that they've been sharing with us. So. I'll wrap it up. I'll wrap up my part, and I think we'll open up for questions here. Really, just thanks again for the opportunity to work with the PMTA group and to share this information. And we really look forward to working with everyone in Pennsylvania on both safety and bypass.
Hey, Charlie, Mark, I just wanted to say one thing. It's so important what we're doing. And some of the things that we showed you today, carriers are calling and saying, hey, believe it or not, we still have drivers not using seatbelts. What a great way to remind those drivers to buckle up before they go out those gates. We're having too many drivers ejected from cabs of trucks that are killed or in rollover incidents. I've had some carriers call and say, hey, I get in trouble with tie downs a lot. It's the simple things that you don't think about that we can let these carriers script their own message to their drivers and actually save lives. And I can tell you from a trooper standpoint, again, it's better that you police your own folks and let you find those problems and become that coach, as Charlie said, before law enforcement has to take control. And unfortunately, somebody gets a ticket, which affects your safety score, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, we'll switch it over to Mr. Brandon. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, guys. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to type those into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those as they pop in. I have a question actually that came to mind as you guys were talking. We're looking at the truck parking in particular. How does that process work? How do you get that information from a place where spots might be available, and how far away do you think are you from, fully realizing the potential of that aspect?
Yeah, Mark, do you want me to take that one?
Sure.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's not easy, I guess, as you can imagine. But it really starts with having states that are investing in parking, smart parking systems, and you know, and that's an investment in sensors that are installed at parking locations, so rest areas. And there's different technologies there. We won't get into the details, but you can imagine essentially a sensor that identifies whether a particular spot has a truck in it or not. And those sensors then basically connect up into a network that communicates back to a system that the state is responsible for it, or states own those systems, and then we connect into those cloud-based systems. So every state's got a data feed that a lot of them make it available to the public, freely, and to technology partners freely, and so we're tapping into those systems, for every state that's got a data feed available. We're basically tapping into that. We look at that information, as it updates, and then make that information available to drivers as they approach the particular location. And again, it's for us, it's depends on the site, but it's either 5 miles out or 25 miles out, or both, that we're warning drivers to let them know, hey, for this stop, up ahead, how many spots are available or not.
Okay, sure. I was kind of picturing somebody walking out with a notepad counting spots.
Old school.
But that makes more sense.
That might
I
be the
guess,
backup
logistically.
system, but yeah.
There was one other thing that caught my eye. I don't want to drag things on if people don't have questions, but I noticed in the map that you showed earlier that I counted 15 spots in Pennsylvania that were marked as low bridge heights. How do you get that information? And I mean, I'm sure there are more than 15, but I'm just curious how that information gets collected as well.
Yeah, I think the dots on the map kind of blended when you get into probably Philadelphia. There's probably more than 15 actual bridges. We can look up the exact count here, but I know it's more than 15. We basically we use a data partner who has a list of bridges, and bridges. There's plenty of sources out there that list their bridges. Some states we work with also have shared their bridge signage inventory with us, so we know exactly where the bridges are and what the heights are. But we curate that, so every site that every site in that database, we basically are manually looking through Google Maps, Google Street View even, and identifying if it's a valid location, if it's a bridge height that matters for truck drivers, identifying where that alert needs to get shown. As you can imagine, most of them are in city or metropolitan areas, so you can't just alert a driver kind of last second. You got to alert them probably a block or two, up from that bridge, to let them have a chance to find an alternate route. So a lot of manual work goes into it. That's why we think this is different than a lot of other mechanisms out there for just saying, hey, there's a low bridge coming up. And we're focused on the ones where we've seen incidents, and we know that trucks are driving through those sites quite frequently.
Sure. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any questions come in our Q&A box or in the chat box. So if there's not anything else that you guys would like to add, I can wrap things up for us.
Brandon, I just say one thing. Many years ago, working with the trucking industry in North Carolina, where I live, we have one of the best relationships with the Trucking Association, State Highway Patrol does. And we were able to get that relationship through a lot of hard work and trust and transparency. And we always knew that we would prevail in that. And we did that. At Drivewyze and Intelligent Imaging Systems, we work very hard as a transparent company with law enforcement and with our vendor partners and with our carriers that subscribe to our technology. And this technology will, without a doubt, in my opinion, help save lives, help expedite your freight to and from, and be able to bypass waste stations, utilize your time more efficiency. But the most important thing that we're seeing with Safety Plus is the carriers get to take it on their own accountability to actually notify these drivers. And they've asked us, you know, how can we make our carriers and companies more safe, our truck drivers more safer? And this is a prime example of how to do it. At Drivewyze and Intelligent Imaging Systems, along with Charlie, my brother here, we're so excited to be able to bring this to the state of Pennsylvania and to all our states and provinces, because we know we can make a difference in someone's life and change it by keeping them out of a collision and getting them, preventing them from harm's way. So we're very excited about it. I think if people will take a look at us, let us know, reach out to us. You have our emails, our phone numbers. We'd love to show you, as I would pass a lot of the technology stuff to Charlie and let him handle it. So thank you again, Brandon.
Thank you guys for your time today. Thank you all for attending. I would like to bring a couple of upcoming webinars to your attention. Next week, we have a Next Gen meeting for individuals that might be new to the industry or just new to the company that you're working with. It's a networking opportunity. We have a FMCSA seed program webinar coming up on January 21st, and a resolving exhaust after treatment systems and fuel cold flow issues. We may need to work on the name for that one. Webinar on January 26th. There's more information about those on our website. Thank you all for attending today, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks, everyone.